these days. Maybe you can do a Pomeranian Lion as well. Taking a look at what we have coming up next, we have Alb987 up against Noriggoon. A good clash between East meets West. We have yet to see any of the European qualifiers be able to step out onto it. We've seen APAC, of course, do well. We'll see if Noriggoon can keep up that momentum as he represents Korea. Now, we have a very interesting lineup here, Brian. I think we get all the cool matches, and we just kind of leave the rest for Subtle Raven, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a blisteringly fast day so far. Lots of powerful decks, both the powerful aggressive decks we just saw Control win with in the last matchup, as well as powerful combo and control style decks. Noriggoon is one of the weirdest decks that we've actually seen so far in this event. We were trying to evaluate what we thought would happen, but this is not a deck that either of us has ever seen before.
Right. It is an OTK priest. Now, the thing about this is that it's a little different than the usual priest. It's almost playing like a freeze priest in some ways there. I think it's a little bit ironic that we see priest being the one killing people with Alex Straza and like Prophet Valen combos, because usually it's happening to priest, which is a little funny. What really starts becoming interesting is how it fits the rest of the lineup, because you can clearly see across all of Noriggoon's decks that he's trying to kill aggro. He's got, Reno Mage, Reno Warlock, Quest Warrior, and he's teched all of them to beat aggro. Then how does Priest with combo style deck beat aggro? What do you think, Brian? Does that fit there?
Well, there's a couple of elements in Noriggoon's Priest deck that are powerful against aggressive decks. He has Wild Pyromancer, which is just historically incredibly strong against a lot of the aggressive decks, and also just a lot of actual healing. He has the Flash Heals as well as Light of the Naru to just give him a lot of access to ways to restore his health.
Okay, we'll see if that ends up paying off. Alb, in the meantime, as you guys can see on your screen to the left here, he has pretty much what I would expect to be a standard aggressive lineup. He's got a token Druid, he's got Pirate Warrior, Aggro Shaman, and a Recruit Paladin, mid-range Recruit Paladin. As you can see, he also owns a bar in Italy with his wife. One of the cooler facts that I saw on his screen, I was like, dang, that's kind of what I want for both of those things.
And also the fact
in Italy. So he's winning in all three areas.
Italy is a pretty great place. Yeah. I've visited there, not fortunate enough to have spent any time living there or owning a bar there, but reaching a top 100 legend in Wild every season since it existed is a really impressive stat, because
Absolutely.
Wild's been around for a very long time. It's only actually gotten a lot of attention more recently, but it is definitely a proving ground for a lot of these players. We just saw Control, the specialist, win as well, but now we Noriggoon, who is the player we were talking about, with the weirdest deck we've seen in this tournament. He says his favorite decks are types of one-turn kill and Reno variants, and that is very clear from his lineup.
You don't say. Well, I guess maybe he thought Reno Priest wasn't good enough to kill aggro, so he decided to bring OTK Priest. Again, very fascinating. Now, he wouldn't be the only person that qualified for or played it specifically in the Wild Open. There was a player from China, I believe, that did qualify with OTK Priest. Maybe that's where he found inspiration. Of course, unfortunately, that player was not able to join us, and LVG was able to step in graciously. Maybe Noriggoon is going to be his spiritual successor and say, you know what, OTK Priest is not it. Now, Mage was banned from Noriggoon. Very expected here, considering that Mage was pretty much good against every other deck on the lineup here. But Noriggoon choosing to ban the Shaman from Alb987. Very confident that without Shaman, he should be able to take down most of these decks. And I gotta say, without knowing the Priest percentages across the board, 'cause it's still a very uncommon deck, I don't know what to expect from the series, Brian.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's so exciting about Wild, because we see various matchup charts and metagame analysis of Standard all the time, but we don't see nearly the degree of in-depth data for Wild, especially for decks like these. But we are getting to the first game, and hey, look, it's definitely Wild, because there's a Warlock on the screen.
A Wild Warlock has appeared. All right, well, let's go into Reno Warlock versus Pirate Warrior. Reno Warlock has all the tools available. The only problem is that if it draws a little bit of the wrong half of the deck, it doesn't have a good backup plan. If you look at Priest, if you look at Mage, and you compare that as Reno decks against Warlock, at least Priest and Mage are stopping damage. Reno Warlock does the opposite. It helps the aggro deck kill him. So that's usually where Reno Warlock can struggle more against aggro compared to Reno Priest and Reno Mage. But Noriggoon seems to have some pretty good tools, not to mention Alb has a very awkward hand.
Yeah, and Noriggoon here, he has some of his powerful tools, as you mentioned. The Doomsayer can potentially set him up to have a clear board going into his next turn, which could enable potentially coining out a Piloted Shredder or just playing Bran. There's always the temptation to just take your turn slowly and just, I'm going to life tap. But Doomsayer starts to get pretty bad against Pirate Warrior as the turns go on, and your opponent has weapons and charge minions that can kill it without actually giving you the ability to get its effect off. So here, shuts down the possible turn 3 play from Alb, which, makes a lot of sense given the fact that he just didn't do anything the first few turns. So what's in his hand? Probably some more expensive minions.
Ooh, that's one of those interesting tech cards that Noriggoon put in, Corrupting Mist, which
it's kind of a second Doomsayer.
Kind of like a second Doomsayer, which is what you want in a singleton deck like Arena Warlock, having redundancy.
And we just heard the special, oh, brother, have you heard from Muradin lately?
Yeah, Muradin being the third brother of the Dwarf family, right?
The Bronzebeard. The Bronzebeard brothers.
Okay.
Muradin is busy in Heroes of the Storm, unfortunately, and is not able to join us here.
He can stay there, as far as I'm concerned.
Jumping on people, smashing them.
Alba just getting to remove that brand, very threatened by it if Twilight Drake came out or some other really powerful threat. And of course, acknowledging the Glutton Usus in the deck, so it doesn't want to extend too far by just upgrading immediately. One of the things, too, that's a little bit interesting about Pirate Warrior is that there are ways for you to play slow with the deck. We've seen some Pirate Warriors really stack their hand and then try to wait for Ship's Cannon and play it all out at once so that your opponent can't remove everything. Not necessarily the case with Noriggoon. He didn't have Galaka Crawler, so
This is a gross turn. This is the double upgrade on this Rusty Hook. And the Bran, or rather, no, it's not Bran, it's Magni. Confused the Braunbeard brothers here. Magni, like he says in his little intro thing, you can't forge legendary weapons like his sitting on a throne, and that's getting close to a legendary weapon right there. 3/5.
Glutton Usus would be really nice right around now. Stop 12 damage. Mind Control Tech, not it. Noriggoon has the Corrupting Mist now, which is certainly an interesting proposition. I guess the question is if he even bothers playing Mind Control Tap or Mind Control Tech just to gain a little bit of health, or if he'd rather life tap and accept a lot of damage.
If he were to life tap here, he goes to 27. He's facing 6 guaranteed on the board, plus the other. Deathlord is nice after the Corrupting Mist goes off to protect you. We saw how powerful Deathlord can be in just the last series where Control. He did buff his Deathlord quite a bit, but it is a very difficult minion for these aggressive decks to deal with. And yeah, this Corrupting Mist, effectively, a 2-cost Doomsayer that can't be removed, but does mean all this damage is guaranteed to go to Noriggoon's face.
Yeah, I do like the life tap from Noriggoon because he does have the Mind Control Tech as flexibility for Shadow Flame the next turn with Mortal Coil, if he can have enough mana built up to it. And now you're starting to see Noriggoon, the reason why he life tap is because he has so many anti-aggro options. In fact, he doesn't have anything close to the Leroy Jenkins Power Overwhelming combination. He doesn't have either of those cards in his deck, which is really weird because you don't really see Power Overwhelming with Shadow Flame, for example.
One thing that's really important to keep in mind, while it may seem like, okay, I'm playing against an aggressive deck, I don't want to life tap, my life's important. You also just need to find your key tools to survive your opponent's damage. If you don't have Reno Jackson, life tapping is going to be a rough proposition. But Leroy, and another Ship's Cannon here. So Leroy gives Alb the ability to punch through. And this is actually a lot of damage. This is almost certainly going to be a pirate here.
Yep.
And boom, boom. Ship's Cannon's fire.
Oof.
And this is a very big frothing swing. Alb needs to decide where he wants to put his weapon swing. And yeah, he's only going to waste a couple of damage hitting the frothing, and it does shut down the threat of possible Shadow Flame off of that. Now Noriggoon is in a really rough spot.
Does have Coin, Twisting Nether, which is why he felt comfortable with Deathlord coming out. But that Frothing Berserker, very threatening, and I don't know if there's many other options for Noriggoon other than just a full clear.
One thing that Noriggoon had available to him last time was just Siphon Soul. He could have used the Siphon Soul to remove the Frothing Berserker. There's not that many big minions in Alb's deck. And obviously there is, at all times, the threat of the ship's cannons coming down and doing quite a bit of damage. But obviously that ended up being kind of a worst-case scenario for Noriggoon, that he got really, really brutalized on his Deathlord.
Right, the second ship's cannon is what's really problematic. Yes. I think what maybe Noriggoon felt uncomfortable with was leaving up just the ship's cannon in general, because his opponent had a few pirates. He'd kind of be back in that same position, and he wouldn't be able to get Deathlord out anyways.
He would have the potential like Mind Control tech, even just on a board, or Mind Control tech plus Shadow Flame clear too, and would have saved a lot of life. But
true.
All right, well, it is time to twist. And with that Mortal Strike and the weapon, Alb just needs a couple points of damage to end this game right now. That's it.
Yeah, big win here for the Pirate Warrior, considering that Alb was probably looking to kill that. Actually, that was probably one of his other good matchups that he could have had, because Paladin's still around, because he banned the Shaman. So in the end, not that big of a deal, but you can tell that Alb was really relieved that his opponent didn't have Reno, didn't have a lot of those other powerful things, and Pirate Warrior getting a win, but we kind of expected it to this series.
Yeah, Pirate Warrior, as Control said earlier, the consensus best deck in the format, and in fact, so strong that many players are playing Galaka Crawlers in a variety of their decks. Alb actually has 2 copies of Galaka Crawler in his Paladin deck to fight against opposing Pirate Warriors. So it's interesting. There's kind of a metagame decision of, do you want to have the Zombie Chow to be generally strong against aggressive decks, or do you want to have the Galaka Crawler to be a bit stronger overall? But Noriggoon did not take up the win with his Warlock, so we will be seeing it again. And here we took a look at the Warlock earlier, and the key cards that make it important and powerful in this format. Reno Jackson, obviously a huge one.
Right, and you can see that he focused a lot more on the Death Rattle package, primarily playing Pilot Shredder, which means he plays the Zoth as well. And one of the more interesting things is how he kind of interacts with some of his other key cards. So, for example, he doesn't have Power Overwhelming, which has been kind of a good package with Sylvanas and low drop minions, so that even if Doomsayer got silenced, or if you have Galaka Crawl, you can still put Power Overwhelming and Shadow Flame it. So it's a little bit conflicting, but the general theme is that he wants to kill aggro without sacrificing his late game. It is not exactly working out the way intended, considering that he just lost to an aggressive deck, but he has another chance to redeem himself, and he's already had a good start. He has Corrupting Mist and Reno Jackson, 2 very good cards against Token Druid.
Yeah, and Alb playing Token Druid, as you mentioned, very kind of similar to the aggro Druid lists that we see in Standard, but much more powerful. He actually is not playing the more egg-focused one. One of the very popular versions includes Nerubian Egg, Dragon Egg, but his is much more focused on sort of the traditional aggro Druid. And this is a traditional aggro Druid start in Standard that we see, which is Innervate into Vicious Fledgling. Yep. Everyone's favorite.
This is where Corrupting Mist is pretty good, because at worst, your opponent can mark a Yasharaj and hit it Wind Fury, hit you for 10 damage, but at least that thing dies, and your opponent invested 2 cards into it.
Yeah, this is one of the decks that has tools to deal with the early fledgling here. And yeah, none of these are particularly exciting. He basically just innovated out a 3/3 that has no additional ability, and now Dirty Rat. There's no big minions. The scariest thing this could hit would be a Jeeves that would potentially reload Alb's hand. He's actually just going to go ahead and life tap though.
When you have Reno in your hand, you feel like as a Warlock player, you're more free to tap. It's purely a read off his hand. If he had nothing else, just Dirty Rat, I'm pretty sure he would have just let it rip. And of course, the threat of not only pulling out a significant minion, but also you're increasing the chances of Mark of the Wild, or Mark of Yasharaj as well, and Power of the Wild really being threatening.
And speaking of those, this is an interesting decision with the Shadow Bolt, because you could choose to Shadow Bolt the 3/4 Creeper, but that does leave 2 additional minions on the board, which makes any of the AoE buffs much more powerful.
Yeah. Mark of the Lewis, Power of the Wild again, being very strong. And also, if Alb was able to land really powerful cards, like Savage Roar being able to end the game. Some decks do run Soul of the Forest as another potential threat, but Alb doesn't have it in his list.
Yeah, Alb does have Jeeves, though. This is the real card that makes this deck so powerful in Wild, frankly. In Standard, rather, if you run out of cards, you're out of cards, basically. You're just drawing off the top of your deck. You need to close out the game. But in Wild, Jeeves just gives you a never-ending flow of resources that you can just keep playing everything every single turn.
Noriggoon may feel a little under pressure here because Savage Roar is a lot of damage, and if Kazakus just gets ignored, he might not have the time. He's going to dig with Kazakus. I wonder if he's going to take 5 or 1.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what he takes here because 1 is more likely to give you AoE, more likely to give you armor if those are effects you're looking for because there is no polymorph option. And 2 damage from the AoE is good enough to clear most of this board. Unfortunately, it doesn't kill Jeeves. So if he were to take the 1 damage and not, rather the 1 cost and not get damage, possible Jeeves survives. He did get 2 damage AoE, so now he's deciding in his second mode here. I'm going to guess we'll see draw a card, just to potentially dig himself further to a way to deal with this board if it gets more out of hand. If Alb finds a buff here, there's Roar.
Oh my gosh, that lethal?
Interesting.
Hold on, let's count. 10.
I don't believe so. It's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He's actually 16, 17. He's 1 damage off lethal, including the Living Roots, or 1 mana off lethal for his hero power.
Does that mean you still go for it? If you hero power now, you do.
I think you definitely Roar.
Yeah, you definitely Roar. So you have 10 plus the 4 on board plus hero power. That means you technically set up a lethal with the Living Roots. Of course, the problem is if your opponent heals at all next turn, this lethal does not go through. Oh, he's not going to hero power.
Yeah, not hero powering here means that the Dirty Rat actually prevents lethal from the Living Roots here. By playing an additional minion, this does give him an extra draw. And there he finds another Living Roots.
Goodness.
So by playing the Haunted Creeper, he got 1 more card out of his hand. Jeeves got him another card. That means that he found exactly what he needed to punch through even this Dirty Rat. So yeah, the Kazakus Potion can clear off pretty much this entire board, but that second Living Roots is going to allow Alb to punch through despite it.
Noriggoon got way too greedy. He tapped on turn 2, assumed that he'd be able to live just with this Kazakus Potion, and is completely punished. He really thought he had Reno so he can afford to greed. He said, you know what? The only way I lose is double Living Roots, but he gave his opponent an out here. His opponent specifically had Savage Roar into Living Roots for direct damage, but that one game, that one chance, and it all has gone to waste here. Noriggoon had a fantastic way to come back to this game, and Alb escapes by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, that was about as close as it gets. Alb frankly, he needed to draw that Living Roots too, and I think the previous turn, may have made a bit of a misstep by not using his hero power to get Noriggoon into range for the Living Roots to begin with. But Jeeves did get, in fact, his master what he needed, and the second Living Roots closed out game number 2. And we're in a very quick series once again.
Yeah, and that was a devastating loss for Noriggoon, to say the least here, because those were the 2 very linear aggressive decks versus the Paladin. The Ruku Paladin is extremely versatile. It can play fast, it can play very slow, it can even just kind of play very tempo-oriented and push, like just based off how their opponents are playing as well.
Yeah, we saw a very similar Paladin deck from Masink. Alb is playing a bit of a different overall take. He has those Galaka Crawlers we mentioned earlier, and he's pretty heavily focused on the token plan as well, though. He has the full package of Muster, Quartermaster, Stegodon, Stand Against Darkness, even 2 copies of Steward of Darkshire.
Yeah, that's huge.
And specifically against controlling decks, the Steward of Darkshire is incredibly strong because you can prevent Hellfire or things like that, any kind of damage-based AoE from being able to clear your board.
Right, and Quest Warrior is supposed to kill the aggressive decks. Noriggoon no longer has any aggro decks to kill, really. He's got a mid-range deck to really deal with, and the Quest Warrior is not going to be able to deal with that easily. It's going to need, a handful of things to go correctly there. So he's going to go ahead and queue Reno Warlock again, which, I was anticipating a Paladin ban from the start and trying to take your chances with the aggressive Shaman, but he chose to ban Shaman because he felt like it had probably too much burn. And this is a matchup where Reno, probably doesn't even matter that much.
Right.
You can be threatened just with a few 1/1s and your best play is Reno Jackson, and then your opponent buffs the board and does even more damage, sending you back right to where you were.
Yeah, the Paladin deck has so much longevity because it has the tokens that your opponent often is forced to kill before you use buffs on them. That's really what the strength of this deck is against control decks, is the threat of what you could do on your next turn rather than having to commit everything up front. And Stonehill Defender, as well, as we see in Alb's hand, is super strong at potentially generating additional high-impact minions like another Sunkeeper Tarim. And specifically, the Warlock deck relies on minions for defense in a lot of ways. It's not spell-based removal. So if it has to get to the mid-game and try to defend itself with big minions and just get Sunkeeper Tarim'd, that is a disaster.
Well, for now, Noriggoon is bullying the board with the Twilight Drake, and Noriggoon does not have any access to Area of Effect. This is extremely threatening to the face of Quartermaster or the Let Fuse Stegodon. And Noriggoon doesn't have any AoE. He can use Corrupting Mist, very big sacrifice he's going to make. So I'm anticipating him to play Pilot Shredder or Deathlord in this position.
It's an interesting spot because, as you mentioned, there's so much threat from these, theoretically. But Alb actually doesn't have any of the buffs available to him right now.
Right. And if he doesn't, the strongest play is probably a Loatheb. Stand Against Darkness, of course, is kind of is pretty weak. So Noriggoon just going to play Pilot Shredder and say, if he Quartermasters...
Oh, there it is! Right off the top of the deck. 2 arms.
Punish.
And yeah, Alb now suddenly with 12 power in play. This is huge.
Yeah, now of course comes the ever important question in Hearthstone: to face or not to face.
and I think that knowing that you're playing against a deck with Reno Jackson, I like the trade at least there. And I think he may go face with the rest because there's no real need. Like, what goes badly if you leave the Trog Beast Rager up? The 3/2 body isn't going to cause problems.
Ooh, wonder if Dirty Rat has any relevance, given that you can really disrupt turn 6 plays. The thing is, you can't play around a Spikered Steed, but you can play around other things like a Light Fuse Stegodon that comes on turn 6, or if your opponent has another Quartermaster. You saw that he played the top decked one, so perhaps he's trying to mess with you. But
I wonder if Noriggoon might have considered just playing Corrupting Mist before his Deathlord here and then clearing off some of the board.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, maybe Dark wants to Dark Bomb this.
True, yeah. I guess attack Dark Bomb gives him pretty stable position on the board. Galaka Crawler is a play that is potentially indicates he's trying to play around Sunkeeper Tarim. He doesn't want Alb to be able to get a high-value Tarim on both his Twilight Drake as well as his Deathlord. I mean, there's just potentially just equality from Alb here, which you could use to clear everything off. I'm going to go ahead and Stonehill Defender first. Pretty weak selection there for this matchup, at least.
Yeah, a quality Primordial Drake gives him a potential way to slow down the matchup if needed.
But that's one of the things about this matchup is just the Paladin can go long against the Reno deck. The Reno deck doesn't have the same sort of inevitabilities it has against aggressive decks in terms of just regaining all its life or in terms of killing all of your minions.
Yeah.
There's just so much reload potential every single turn.
Man, Noriggoon's hand... I mean, he picks up Sylvanas, which is good. Is there any way for him to die? I think that's what he's contemplating. Doesn't look like it, so it does seem like a good opportune time for Sylvanas. And Sylvanas is excellent against Death Rattles and Divine Shields, because it's hard for your opponent to remove their own Death Rattles and their own Divine Shields.
Right.
I would probably use this opportune time to set it up. But still looking a little awkward for Noriggoon moving forward, because he doesn't have a really good way to clear things proactively. Okay, so it looks like he's leaning towards Reno because he felt like he may be in danger of dying.
It's not even necessarily that you feel like you're in danger of dying in this matchup, though. It's a matter of you need to play Reno when you aren't forced to spend your mana on AoE later. When you may then be at risk of dying, you have to AoE, so you can't even afford to Reno. That's actually a pretty decent result for the Deathlord for Noriggoon, because it means that it gets a Quartermaster out of the deck, so there's less threat available.
Yeah, and in a vacuum, Quartermaster, I think, in my opinion, is a little more scary than Tarim, because Tarim, at best, sets the Rakusta 3/3s, but usually you can Tarim first and then play him to 5/5s and greater.
You also double Quartermaster. You got 4 arms.
That's right.
That's just so many arms.
I mean, those tokens hit for really hard.
And this is one of the really powerful things about the Paladin deck in this kind of matchup too. I keep sort of going back to this. You don't need to commit much. Here, Alb still has a handful of so many powerful threats, and every single turn, he is just putting a ton of pressure on Noriggoon, who needs to be extremely careful about how he deals with it. Dr. Boom is great though, because it makes Sunkeeper Terram potentially not nearly as effective. It's one of the best ways to deal with him as well.
And in hindsight, playing Reno sets up for a better Boom, so that way he can have more impact with these Boom bots and potentially get very fortunate and clear the board. So, I was literally thinking, like, man, he had the Zoth in hand. Don't you want to play Sylvanas and try to swing the board that way? This way, Noriggoon does have the time he feels like can play 2 Sylvanas. The only question, of course, is it enough to stabilize the board?
Yep. The Boom bot attacks. Where do they go? Where do the bombs go? All right. Oh, that was great. Ended up not actually killing his minion. He plays the Sunkeeper Terram, so Boom itself is neutralized here. And now I think the major threat that Alb's thinking about in terms of trading versus going face is Shadow Flame. He doesn't want to get his board Shadow Flamed off and leave his opponent with minions here.
Yeah, or Hellfire. Either of those options would be pretty awkward. Noriggoon has a pretty interesting opportunity here to play Sylvanas and the Corrupting Mist. Now, the sequencing actually does kind of matter because the Sylvanas dies on his turn, which means that his opponent can't develop a minion.
His opponent can just attack into it with his minions that are going to die.
Yeah.
So it might be Dirty Rat Mist time, though.
Okay. That also works.
Noriggoon's actually getting to the point where it's late enough in the game that things like the Sylvanas plus N'Zoth plus Jiraxxus make it online. Jiraxxus is a little scary in this matchup. Normally against Paladin, you're not that you're rarely that scared to play Jiraxxus just because they don't have very much burst potential. But the burst potential of cards like Terram or Quartermaster is still quite high.
Well, a Corrupting Mist works like Doomsayer, and it sets up a really good Jiraxxus. Noriggoon tapped because I think he was looking for AoE first. Doesn't find it. Play Sylvanas instead. Man, Sylvanas is just so annoying to deal with.
Yeah.
You could give your opponent a... oh, man, you actually set him up for a 3-3 or a 3-2, which is kind of problematic.
I think that in Alb's position, you probably just want to clear off this board here, because things can go so badly if your opponent just gets to keep a Sylvanas up and you try to commit anything big.
Agreed. You're giving him a 3-attack minion, pretty much no matter how you cut it. So
this is more or less a board clear, effectively, because he ends up taking the 3-3 here. I was actually just going to go ahead and Spiker Steed and go face.
Ooh. Would make him weak to Spellbreaker. He does the right thing. The Spellbreaker would mean that if he draws Tyrion, silence has been used.
All right, Kazakus is a very strong draw for Noriggoon. We see a bit of a nod of recognition here that maybe he's getting to the point that he can turn the corner because he's not under very much pressure at the moment. We haven't seen some of the very key cards that we mentioned from Alb's deck, like the Steward of Darkshire to combine. Wow. All right, that is AoE after AoE for straight draws from Noriggoon. So exactly the kind of cards he needs to line up against the swarm token strategy from Alb.
Yeah, that's I was looking at it originally as one of the cards to kind of take care of any big recruit board. It also wasn't that bad of an option that turn either, but Noriggoon going to hold on to it, recognizing his only immediate AoE was to play the Abyssal Enforcer. If he uses that, and then he has only Kazakus to rely on, and put him in a bad spot.
And we saw Al briefly mouse over the shielded mini-bot there, but then both in terms of value and in terms of just what your deck generally looks to do, you'd almost always rather make a recruit when you have excess mana.
Yeah, Alb taking a little bit too slow here, and he gave Alb Noriggoon an opportunity to set up a big board. Alb's been holding on to a quality for an opportunity such as this, and is going to hope that his 4-8
Well, it's going to get equality anyway. So the equality consecration, there's going to be. I actually don't know whether the boombots of Sylvanas will go off first. Or I guess it's the boombots because they're left. So they probably came into play first.
Right. So it actually does have a chance for him to lose everything before Sylvanas steals him.
It's true. Yeah, there is the possibility that the boombots actually just kill his minions and Sylvanas gets them nothing.
He also can trade off, but then the Death Lord summons a minion first.
I think, yeah, the Death Lord. I think this is how it works. The complexities of timing when things come into play at the same time not clear to me. Okay, there we go. So yeah, that ended up being a fantastic result for Alb. It only gave away a 1-1. Opponent got a pretty poor Shredder drop.
But is this the opportunity for Noriggoon to maybe play Jiraxxus?
Jiraxxus into this board already is kind of scary. There's the shielded mini-bots that are going to pressure you a little bit. And then the threat of more follow-up. He does have multiple AoE, though. The fact that he has Demon Wrath plus Abyssal Enforcer means that even if there is a divine shielded set of minions from a Steward of Darkshire, he can clear them off unless they get more than 3/3, which is very unlikely. There's actually already both Quartermasters gone, so super unlikely.
Yep. Thorson was an excellent draw, pretty much as good as it gets, because that lets Noriggoon squeeze in much better plays. Jiraxxus gets cheaper, so you can get Jiraxxus and AoE the same turn.
Yeah, this is really swinging back Noriggoon's way.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that Paladin struggles with in the late stages of the game against control decks. If it ever loses the board, everything is just kind of piecing together as a combo, but it's not enough to close out the game. And while this is, great for stability, Alb is really far off the target, and I think Noriggoon has turned the corner.
Picks up Gluttonous Ooze, not really relevant here, but even insurance against a possible Tyrion. And yeah, the Abyssal Enforcer
Shadow Bolt
can clear off all the 3/3s. And yeah, the Shadow Bolt will just finish off Tarim if that's what he wants to do. And even room to life tap here if he decides that he doesn't have enough resources. Oh, just leave it up to Zakas. All right, yeah, don't even need to kill this. This could potentially go poorly if there's a Spike Ridge Steed and you don't get a Polymorph potion, but it is still just an incredibly advantageous position for Noriggoon here.
Would you take the summon or deal damage? Because you do play a Death Rattle deck, so summoning is very proactive and strong.
I think that at this point Noriggoon just wants to finish the game. He just wants to be able to get his threats out on the board and put enough pressure on Alb to win before he can find, for instance, his other equality. That was actually a very good heal there, preserving Tarim, but Twisting Nether giving Noriggoon even more room to clear big minions. It's actually interesting because the Twisting Nether obviously is a powerful option at this point, but it is one of his best ways to clear a board if it does get Divine Shield buffed. So it's a very important resource.
Well, Noriggoon is thinking about Dirty Rat to play with a Twisting Nether, but doesn't actually pull any.
Yeah, we see a little eyebrow raise there from Noriggoon. Oh, that was not what I was expecting. And this is one of the things with the Paladin deck, too. Like, so many of its threats are actually spells that generate token minions.
I don't know if there's a need for him to actually play Twisting Nether anymore.
Yeah, I think we may just see Corrupting Mist into Healbot.
Squeeze in a life tap, perhaps.
He is actually down to 9 cards. Maybe he's at least somewhat worried about fatiguing here, but no, he's going to go for it. Ooh.
I don't know if... You only need, like...
you don't need much.
5 or 6 turns at most with Jiraxxus.
Life Tap found him a Siphon Soul, which is the perfect tool for the job here.
Ooh, the slight punish here. Talked about how Alb could get Spike Ridge Steed, and that was exactly what happened. But still, I think it's not going to be enough here. Alb doesn't have real substance behind these 1/1s. Not enough card draw, which is one of the things that is weak about this deck. The fact that if it gets cleared, it doesn't actually have that many catch-up mechanics. Paladin's not really known for the draw, and it's not like these decks play Solemn Vigil, which would make sense in a token-based deck, but it doesn't actually work out that way.
One card that Alb actually is not playing that is extremely powerful in control matchups in this deck is Vine Cleaver. Vine Cleaver is just a tool that can give you additional token generation as well as board control and tempo, as well as just a finisher. And as we see, he's just drawing somewhat low impact things here. And now Noriggoon with great defensive resurrect there of the Deathlord as well.
Yeah, you can really tell that Alb's deck building, specifically accounting for aggressive decks with his double Galactic Crawler, really came to sabotage him. Like, Galactic Crawler completely useless against his Reno Warlock deck, and he would love to have something better than that, just that 2/3.
And Light Fuse. Okay. All right, this can potentially generate some big board presence and at least force Noriggoon to play that Twisting Nether.
Yeah. Summoning more 1/1s might be his best option based off what we know.
And there's a Death Rattle if he wants to go for it. Wind Fury and Poisonous.
Oh, Poisonous is very
Poisonous,
tempting.
yeah, it's got to be for sure because like as we mentioned earlier, Noriggoon's deck is very much built around winning with minions ultimately. So getting 5 minion removals from your recruits is very powerful.
I wonder if Noriggoon is tempted to go even a step beyond and let his Deathlord die before using a mass AoE like Twisting Nether.
Yeah.
He could pull out Tyrion. I guess he does end up taking 5 damage, but your opponent's almost out of cards. So you could potentially heal out of that, either Gluttonous Ooze or Jiraxis and Healbot. Feels like you're good enough to stay out of range.
Yeah, a lot of options here for Noriggoon, exactly how he wants to maneuver this, but frankly, almost all of them are good.
Trying to think about any way he could possibly throw, but he knows Alb has played almost all of his threats. Pretty much just Tyrion remains as the biggest one, now that Rag Lightlord's out of the way.
And there's even not that many token generators left. Alb just has the 1 card in hand, and Consecration, frankly, is one of the worst cards in this kind of matchup. No natural boards that it lines up against. You really need equality for it to matter, and it's often just going to rot in your hand when you need to be aggressive. Yeah, we see exactly that, making the trade. Steward of Darkshire comes out. So Noriggoon's going to do something to clear things off here.
Oh, wow, he got all that off in time.
All right, so back to full. And this is a board full of minions that Noriggoon can possibly use. And I just talked about how Consecration is weak, but that was a great spot for it that Noriggoon lined himself up for. But despite that, there's just so little left in Alb's tank here. He has gone through pretty much all of his powerful tools, and he's not going to win the game with just these 1/1s.
Maybe, but I mean, Noriggoon also kind of set up with himself in a kind of awkward spot with Jiraxis. He doesn't have a good follow-up to it.
It's true.
Like Jiraxis is corrupting this, but Alb still kept poisonous minions, which means the 6/6s aren't going to be real threats, even if Jiraxis hero powers. And he's going to be sit down to 15. So I'm actually not necessarily the biggest fan of the way Noriggoon set himself up here. It feels like he put himself in a situation where he has to get a lot of low value off Twisting Nether, and he still doesn't have a guaranteed way to deal with Tyrion if his opponent drew it.
It's true. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he could just go ahead and Corrupting Mist here. I was actually somewhat surprised he did not Corrupting Mist the turn before.
Yeah,
Corrupting Mist just felt like a very powerful tool to use on a board where your opponent has a bunch of low damage but high threat minions like these recruits.
Now he picked the Doomsayer, which was inevitability. He's so low into his deck, so now he can set up for the Jiraxis. Doomsayer into Jiraxis, always one of the strongest things you can ever do.
There's a quality.
Yeah.
He can kill the Doomsayer and protect a recruit.
Alb doesn't even attack with his weapon, recognizing that this is a very obvious Jiraxis setup. He's got 8 damage from the True Silver. He's already used Consecrations. I don't know. I don't think Alb can really get there. He doesn't have enough damage to really close that 7 damage gap. Not to mention, Noriggoon also has the Gluttonous Ooze, which Alb's paying attention to.
There's a Stegodon. What's in the box? What can we do here with our recruit?
Plus attack or poisonous probably seems to be the best.
Not much, turns out, is the answer.
I guess +1/+1. Health, Health isn't that useful considering both Quartermasters and Stegodon, or Quartermaster and Light Fuse Stegodons have been used. Okay, chooses to go for it anyways, trying to see if you can get any semblance of board presence.
He's trying to maximize the damage that he's getting off of the pair of weapons he has, just the Light's Justice remaining, but going to get fully punished by the Gluttonous Ooze removing that.
It's pretty hard to turn down.
It is. I mean, you're in a spot where you really do need to squeeze out every last bit of value you can.
I think he's might be slightly worried about Tyrion, but the thing is, you're pushing enough damage that you might just kill your opponent even if he plays Tyrion. Plus the 4 life ain't too shabby.
Yeah, up to 18 effectively. Stand Against Darkness, not really what you're looking for without anything to pair it with. I mean, Alb kind of had the desperation Stegadon last turn, which meant that this Stand Against Darkness lost any kind of real impact. I believe he's out of buffs. The one Quartermaster was gone from his deck. He does have Steward of Darkshire, but both Stegadons, both Stand Against Darkness, and both Defenders plus Terram are all gone.
Yeah, the only reason for Alb to pick the plus health was to play around AoE like Hellfire, but it doesn't really seem to be much of an issue at this point. It was a long time coming, but the Reno Warlock was finally able to withstand it. It took 28 cards to do it. It was very close. Paladin was almost got over the final hump here. But it looks like unless Alb is able to get exactly Tyrion
even
turn.
Even Tyrion just gets Mortal Coil Shadow Flamed away.
Yeah, he'd be dead regardless.
And it's True Silver Champion. That will not do it. And yeah, Noriggoon gets on the board with a win with his Warlock. So yeah, this is wild. Warlock is winning, confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a matchup that Reno Warlock can win. Paladin does tend to have the pressure edge sometimes, but Reno Warlock, one of the decks that has an abundance of area effect and the ultimate AoE card in Twisting Nether. So it doesn't matter how big your recruits get, should be able to deal with it. Noriggoon very stressed because, still not out of the woods just yet, because how does he beat this Paladin deck 2 more times? Especially if he has Quest Warrior, it could be really tricky.
Yeah, the Quest Warrior from Noriggoon is a really interesting choice. It's particularly interesting because he has Garrison Commander in the deck. I'm really excited to see that firing off multiple shots of Die Insect in a single turn. The real upgrade for the Quest Warrior deck in Wild, though, is Revenge. And that's a card that's extremely powerful against the Paladin deck specifically.
Yeah, Revenge really good. Death Splice, nothing to shake your fist at either. So there's just like a lot of good AoE for the Warrior to utilize. But
it will be the Priest.
The Priest first. Now remember, as we teased in the very beginning, this is a OTK combo Priest. One with Alexstrasza, Prophet Valen, Embrace of Shadow, Flash Shield, Light of the Naru, all the works, tied together beautifully by an Emperor Thorsan. Yeah, and I can't wait to see this in action.
I really honestly have no idea what to expect from this deck because it is a combo-centric Priest deck, but it's not like Purify combo. It's not a typical combo style Priest deck that we've seen. Yes, there have been sort of Prophet Velen burst combo decks that have existed in Hearthstone's history, but this pairs them with Resurrect, which is a way to get additional triggers off of Wild Pyromancer. If you're the only main that's died is Pyromancer, it can give you great AoE tools.
Yep.
And I'm really interested to see how Noriggoon pilots this deck.
Yeah, already some decisions to be made. Shadow Vision is being drawn. Do you use it now or do you save it for something else? I'm a little bit lost. I'm going to defer to the Priest expert during this matchup and Brian Gilbert.
There's a number of things to be considering right now. One of the biggest is because your opponent has the coin, there is always the threat of Coin Stegadon, which is really threatening and makes your Pyromancer much less powerful. Powered Shield, super good in this kind of spot because being able to pair that with Pyromancer does give you lots of tools for clearing things off easily. Alb gonna go ahead and not respect the threat of Pyromancer here and just commits a Steward of Darkshire. It's gonna be answered, I assume, with Pyro Shadowward Pain, which is gonna be a full clear.
Yes, and Alb trying to get that pressure so that way he can threaten a Coin Quartermaster or Life Use Stegadon. And in this position, Noriggoon just gonna take the very easy clear, and Alb gonna respond by clearing the Pyromancer. And that ends up putting Noriggoon in a little bit of awkward spot because he doesn't have any good turn 5 play.
He does have Embrace the Shadows that he can pair with Circle of Healing for removal if Alb does get on the board without a Divine Shield, which is, I think, a big part of the reason why Alb tried to commit the Steward there rather than just go for coin out my Stegodon. Because even if he did get a good result in the Stegodon, there's always the threat of either Akanai or Embrace the Shadows plus Circle of Healing. So Divine Shield is really important to his ability to stick a board. And yeah, we're going to see the exact same thing. Steward of Darkshire comes down, and now Noriggoon, he needs to deal with this, because if Alb is able to get off a Stand Against Darkness with that in play, he's going to make a nearly impervious board of recruits.
And he only has one Shadow Word Pain in the deck, so
although that draw right there was huge for Noriggoon, though, because even if now the big board comes out, Embrace plus Double Circle can clear everything that Alb has committed.
Is it too out of the box to Power Shield your opponent's minion in this position to draw something? Because you're going to be effectively passing 11 mana worth of stuff over the past 2 turns.
I find myself powered shielding my opponent's minions far more often than I would like when I'm playing a deck that looks anything like this. Not that I've played this deck, but playing sort of combo control style priest decks, you often find yourself with lots of situational cards like Noriggoon finds here. He he's just going to go with Embrace, and
he's going to kill the
Light of the Naru here.
This turn.
This does leave him, if he does just kill the Steward here, and yeah, ping off the... Oh, interesting. He's going to buff it now. Oh, okay. This is what he's doing. He's just using the circle here for the clear on both of them. All right.
Oh, man.
All right. And he picked up a second Embrace. Committing that Embrace there was pretty scary, because it was his only way currently AoE clear, but he picked up another one. So that's a very clutch draw for Noriggoon there. So he still has the tools available to clear a board if Alb makes something big.
That was scary.
It was.
Very scary, because if Noriggoon didn't have that Embrace of Shadow, didn't have a good backup plan. And I think he's taking some risks here.
I think he took some risks when he brought this deck to the tournament.
Yeah, it's true. I don't. Now that I see it in action, I don't think it's actually that bad against aggro as you might think.
Right. I think that the aggressive matchups is actually one of the places where this deck has some good tools, because it has again so much of that healing. Light Bomb. All right.
Yeah, that's another way you can deal with
Now
Paladin.
Noriggoon is actually picking up quite a bit of his really powerful tools for this matchup. He hasn't found his Mind Blasts, Resurrects, whatever else.
Yeah, that kind of stuff will have to wait, because Noriggoon's currently under significant pressure, taking 12 and staring down 17 damage right now.
He does have Light Bomb or Embrace plus Circle. Another Pyromancer picked up.
Oh my goodness.
He's just got it all.
Yeah, Light Bomb deals with the first wave of the recruits.
All right. Well,
Alb's got more, though.
He does. But after this round, though, if this muster Quartermaster once again.
But Quartermaster after you Stegodon.
It's true, yeah. He's just going to go for it now, though.
Oh, okay.
He's trying to protect from Wild Pyromancer specifically, so he doesn't just get his board cleared by Pyromancer. But now, there is the Embrace Circle, which can kill everything. There's also just Pyromancer multi-spell. You can potentially Pyromancer plus Mind Blast. I probably won't use for Mind Blast. Pyromancer plus like Flashlight. I guess you need to do 3 things. So he might need to actually just use the Embrace plus Circle to full clear.
Oh, man. He also is pretty close to killing his opponent, too, because he had Alexstrasza, Flash Shield, Light of the Naru, Mind Blast, which is like pretty close to killing, because that's 15 to follow up the Alexstrasza, but he can't guarantee not dying next turn.
Yeah.
So if he uses Embrace of Shadow here, he doesn't actually have the 2-turn lethal play.
It's true. His Embrace is crucial on multiple angles, because his Embrace is something that he needs to combine with his Circle of Healing in order to effectively have the ability to clear these boards. But it's also part of his win condition. Now his Flash Shield and Light of the Naru, with 2 Embraces down, are only heal spells until he finds his single copy of Soul Priest, which he cannot Shadow Visions for in the same way.
Yeah, Stoner Defender discovers Tyrion. That's kind of what's there for in the deck.
I think Alb may just be Stegodoning here. He doesn't have... Yeah. he doesn't have any more token generation in his hand, at least. Living Spores is very strong because it potentially gives him more things that if he does find Terim and that's removed, he can use to actually keep the pressure on.
I think it's go time. Alexstrasza to the face. You got this 1 in 14 next turn for Hawkeye Soul Priest. Unless your opponent, of course, has the Ragnar's Light Lord, but you're in a bad spot here. Plus the 8/8's nothing to shake your fist at. Very, very strong presence onto the board at the moment. Even playing the Light of the Nard just to get some presence onto the board in case the Alexstrasza goes down.
Galactic Crawler, once again, not useful against Noriggoon's decks.
Yeah, Alb getting an easy...
Just a minion, though.
Yeah, an easy easy snipe here on the Light Warden. Now, the thing is, Noriggoon still has 15, so he picks up Soul Priest.
Acolyte of Pain is not Soul Priest.
Oh man, because he used one of those Light of the Narus, you know, he can't. He has to part ways with another, and now he doesn't have the 15 combo. But he's trying not to die here. Let's see what he draws off of this first.
Another flash heal
that helps him draw more. He can use Alex to kind of get through. Does he have a Shadow or Death in his deck, Brian?
No, there's no copy of Shadow or Death, just one Pain. So he'd need to find... I don't see a way for him to actually find a way to get through Tyrion without just sacrificing his Alexstrasza this turn. So he's going to need actual burn damage. Just flash healing.
Okay.
Oh, actually, the Light Warden is actually sick. Can't attack this turn. It's sleeping.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, oh, is there some possibility that he gets all these combos of heals?
Yeah, there were some crazy Priest matches one time where I saw, you know, your opponent, like, take your Light Warden and do some crazy stuff by healing a bunch.
This is animation trouble right here. You need to have the Light Warden animation and the Acolyte animation and the Wild Pyromancer animation. He doesn't have time to do much. Oh, and look, shake of the head.
I don't like when they're shaking their head. It makes me feel like they forgot to do something. Okay.
He didn't use his hero power. He actually could have kept one of his minions alive or healed himself a bit. And yeah, we're just going to see Consecration clear off Alexstrasza. And now Noriggoon has none of his combo pieces. He had to use everything to just keep himself afloat that turn. And Alb looks like he is on the cusp of victory.
Yeah, I think Noriggoon got a little too fancy, took a little too much time. And you never know if that extra draw was there. And, you know, you got to also go back to whether or not Noriggoon should even have brought this over Reno Priest, for example. I thought Reno Priest was a very solid pick. And now Noriggoon's going to try to see if he can draw a little bit more, but looks like it's a little bit too late here.
Is someone injured?
Yeah, this is kind of the desperation right now.
I mean, can he even stay alive with any card here?
I don't think there's any individual thing he can actually draw at this point. Prophet Velen! He's fancy looking.
It's heartbreaking that Noriggoon flew all the way here. Brought something so cool, just, you know, kind of made some missteps here and there's a couple of questionable calls of whether or not he should have saved some combo pieces or should he have parted ways a little bit too early. And now that is going to be it. Alb is going to advance 3-1 to day 2.
Yeah, it's great to see players having the guts to bring cool decks like this, but it did not end up working out for Noriggoon, and Alb will advance to the semifinals.
Yeah, job well done, and looks like at least his wife's been cheering him on, watching from the bar home in Italy, and Alb will live to see another day, and waits to see who's going to play him in the bottom half of the bracket. You know, going back and thinking about that series there, I think even more than just that Priest deck and that matchup, and we can kind of harp about the choice, but even the fact that the aggro decks got through, which is what I think the Priest was better designed to kill. You know, living mana, haunted creepers, that seems way easier to deal with than, you know, 3/3s constantly hitting you, because he had to part ways with Embrace of Shadow early, and if he didn't have to use one of those Embrace of Shadows early, he actually had that ability to stabilize and 2-turn lethal with Alexstrasza plus a bunch of burn.
Yeah, definitely a lot of windows, but just wasn't able to actually get everything together at the right time. The Paladin was just doing too much to pressure him.
Yeah, so Alb is our winner, and he is waiting with Raven for a couple of words on his victory.
Thanks a lot, guys. So first off, congratulations on the win. It must be a good relief to just get that first win under your belt. How confident were you going into the series, you know, knowing your opponent's deck lists?
I feel really confident.
about my plays, but I really didn't know how to play versus an Alf Denislav, that is the lineup. I really never play a game versus this kind of priest or is a hybrid warrior, so who knows.
Yeah, the priest was kind of nuts, you know, a bit of a weird deck that you can't really plan for either, because it's not something you can practice against because you don't really expect it, right? How are you feeling about the way your lineup has performed? Are you still happy with it? Do you think, seeing everyone else's list, do you think you would have changed anything, or are you pretty good?
No, I'm really happy. I don't know if Pirate will be a good choice for the future, but for it's stand.
Yeah, feeling good for now. So congratulations again. We'll be seeing you tomorrow, of course. But for now, we're just going to go back to Frodan and Kibler at the desk.
Thank you very much, Raven, and congratulations again to Alb. Showing strong for Europe, which I think people have pegged as still, you know, the strongest region overall represented in Hearthstone. So Alb kind of holding strong suit for there. Brian, any final closing thoughts on this series from your end?
Again, I just want to point out, you know, just how great it is to see just such a variety of decks. Not only, you know, the control and aggro style, but, you know, even crazy things like that priest. You know, it's called Wild for a reason.
Priest is one of the more represented classes in Wild right now. And, you know, Warlock's been showing up a decent amount too, so you get to see some really good diversity. So all the more reason for you guys to try Wild out. You know, as we take a look at the bracket, Alb will go ahead and play the winner of Burtik versus McNuggets, which is the last match of the day. Wow, time's flying by, Brian. It's not even 1 o'clock. The broadcast's only been 2.5 hours. We'll see if Burtik and McNuggets will live up to the hype. Some cool decks coming.